Marcus Cole was a good kid who never quite stopped being a good kid. Even after he turned 26, he still called his grandmother every Sunday. He still held the door for strangers. He still coached basketball at the community center on Saturday mornings for free because he believed that a kid with a basketball in his hands was a kid who wasn't holding anything worse. He had his father's height, 6'3", and his mother's gentle voice and his sister's stubbornness, although he would never admit that last part because admitting his older sister was right about anything was against his personal code. He worked as a counselor at a youth outreach program in Baltimore called Second Chance. The program operated out of a converted warehouse on East Preston Street, offering GED tutoring, job placement assistance, and mentorship to young men between the ages of 16 and 24 who were trying to find their way out of the streets. Marcus made $33,000 a year. He drove a car that was older than most of his clients. He wore thrift store button-downs and sneakers that were always clean because he believed that showing respect for yourself was the first step toward earning respect from others. The kids at Second Chance loved him because Marcus never talked down to them. He sat with them. He listened. He told them the truth even when the truth was hard. He said things like the world doesn't owe you anything, but you owe yourself everything. And he meant it in a way that landed because Marcus had grown up in the same neighborhoods these kids came from, and he understood what it cost to choose a different path because he had watched his sister choose one that took her so far from home that sometimes he wasn't sure she'd ever come all the way back. His sister's name was Denise. Denise Cole was 33 years old. She lived in a small apartment in Fells Point, 12 minutes from Marcus's place. She worked at a physical therapy clinic near the harbor, helping patients recover from knee replacements and rotator cuff surgeries, and the kinds of injuries that came from living in a body long enough for it to start breaking down. She was good at her job, patient, methodical. Her hands were strong and precise, and her patients trusted her because she explained everything she was doing and why she was doing it, and she never rushed. She was 5'8", lean, with close-cropped hair, and dark eyes that held a quality her coworkers couldn't quite name. Not coldness, not distance, something more like depth, like her eyes were windows into a room that had more floors than the building suggested. Her supervisor, a woman named Dr. Ansari, once watched Denise catch a 200-pound patient who lost his balance during a standing exercise. Denise moved under him and stabilized him so fast that Dr. Ansari later said it looked like the man never fell at all. Like Denise had known he was going to lose his balance before he knew it himself. That was impressive, Dr. Ansari told her afterward. Denise shrugged. Just reflexes. Dr. Ansari didn't push it, but she noticed that Denise always positioned herself where she could see the entrance to the clinic, and she noticed the scar on the back of Denise's left hand, a thin white line that curved from the knuckle of her index finger to her wrist. The kind of scar that didn't come from a kitchen accident no matter what Denise said about cutting herself chopping onions. The trouble started because of a man named Terrence Odell. Odell ran a network in West Baltimore that had been growing for 3 years. Not drugs, although drugs were part of the foundation that funded it. Odell's primary operation was extortion. He had built a system that targeted small businesses, community organizations, churches, and nonprofits operating in neighborhoods where the police presence was thin, and the residents had learned that calling for help didn't always result in help arriving. He charged fees, monthly, protection money dressed up in the language of community partnership. He called it a contribution. Everyone else called it what it was. Odell was 39. He was smart in the way that predators are smart, attuned to weakness, patient in his approach, relentless in his expansion. He had a degree in business administration from a community college that he referenced often because he liked people to know he was educated. He wore tailored clothes. He spoke carefully. He never raised his voice. The violence that maintained his operation was always delegated, always deniable. He had 3 men who handled enforcement, a former bouncer named Pruitt, a man named Gaines who had done 6 years for aggravated assault, and Odell's cousin, a quiet, efficient individual named Curtis, who never spoke much and didn't need to, because his presence alone communicated everything that needed communicating. Odell had been collecting from businesses on East Preston Street for 18 months. When Second Chance opened in the warehouse, Odell saw it as another revenue source. He sent Pruitt to deliver the terms. Marcus listened politely and then said no. "We're a non-profit," Marcus explained. "We don't have revenue. Every dollar we get goes to the kids. I can't pay you because there's nothing to pay you with," Pruitt reported back. Odell sent Curtis. Curtis was more specific about the consequences of non-payment. Marcus said no again. He said it respectfully, because Marcus was always respectful. But he said it firmly because Marcus was also always firm. "I understand you're serious," Marcus said, "but I can't take money from these kids' programs to pay a fee I don't owe. That's not going to happen." Curtis looked at Marcus for a long time. Then he left. 2 weeks later, 3 of them came to the warehouse at 9 p.m. on a Thursday, after the evening program had ended and the kids had gone home. Marcus was alone, locking up. Pruitt came through the front. Gaines came through the side door. Curtis came from behind. They beat him for 20 minutes. They were methodical about it, not frenzied, controlled. They broke 2 of his ribs. They dislocated his left shoulder. They split the skin above his right eye. They worked on his midsection until he couldn't stand, and then they worked on him on the floor. Curtis never said a word the entire time. Pruitt said very little. Gaines did most of the talking. "This is the first conversation," Gaines said, standing over Marcus while Marcus lay on the concrete floor trying to breathe through cracked ribs. "The second conversation won't be as friendly." They left him on the floor of the warehouse. Marcus lay there for 40 minutes before he could get his phone out of his pocket. His fingers were swollen, and his left arm wouldn't move because of the dislocated shoulder. He didn't call 911. He didn't call the police. He called Denise. He called Denise because Denise was his sister, and because some part of him, some instinct that lived below conscious thought, understood that his sister was the person you called when the world broke down in ways that the normal systems couldn't fix. Denise answered on the first ring. She always answered on the first ring when Marcus called. "Hey, Dee." His voice was wrong, thick, wet, the voice of someone talking through blood and broken things. "Marcus, what happened?" It wasn't a question. It was a demand. Flat and immediate and sharp in a way that Marcus had heard before but never directed at him. The voice of someone shifting gears. "I'm at the warehouse. I need help. Don't move. I'm coming." Denise was there in 9 minutes. She came through the front door and found her brother on the concrete floor in a pool of his own blood, his left arm hanging at a wrong angle, his face swollen and split, his breathing shallow and labored. She knelt beside him. She assessed the injuries the way a medical professional assesses injuries, checking pupils, palpating ribs, testing range of motion. But she did it faster and with more precision than any physical therapist should have been capable of, because the assessment protocol she was using wasn't from physical therapy school. It was from a different kind of training entirely. 2 broken ribs, maybe 3, she said, her hands moving over his torso. "Shoulders dislocated. I'm going to put it back. It's going to hurt. Everything already hurts. This is going to hurt more. Breathe out when I tell you." She reduced the shoulder in one controlled motion. Marcus made a sound that came from somewhere deep and primal, and Denise held him through it, and then she wrapped his ribs with supplies from the medical kit in her car. A kit that was significantly more comprehensive than anything you'd find in a standard first aid box. "Who did this?" she asked. Marcus told her. Odell. The extortion. The refusal to pay. Pruitt, Gaines, Curtis. Denise listened. Her face didn't change, her hands didn't stop working. She taped his ribs and cleaned the cut above his eye and checked his pupils again. And her expression remained the same throughout, calm and focused and precise. But Marcus had known his sister for 33 years, and he could see what was happening behind her eyes. Not anger. Something deeper and colder than anger. Something that had a structure to it. A process. "I'm going to take you to the hospital," Denise said. "And then I'm going to handle this. Dee, don't do anything crazy. These guys are serious." Denise looked at her brother. She looked at his broken face and his wrapped ribs and the blood on the concrete floor of a warehouse where he spent his days trying to help kids build better lives. She looked at what had been done to the only family she had left, the person she loved more than anyone on earth, the kid she had joined the military to protect, the reason she had come home. "So am I," she said. Denise Cole had served in the United States Army for 11 years. She enlisted at 18. She was selected for Ranger School, graduated, and was subsequently recruited into the 75th Ranger Regiment, where she served for 3 years before being identified for a program that didn't have a name on any organizational chart. She was transferred to the Intelligence Support Activity, the Army's most classified Special Operations Unit, the one that conducted advanced force operations in environments where no American presence could be acknowledged. From there, she was attached to Joint Special Operations Command, working alongside Delta Force and DevGru elements on missions that were classified above top secret. She had deployed 14 times across 9 countries: Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Somalia, Yemen, and 4 others she would never name. She had conducted direct action raids, hostage rescues, and high-value target operations in environments so hostile that the mission briefs included expected casualty estimates that would have made most soldiers request a transfer. Denise never requested a transfer. She requested more. She was known within JSOC for 2 things. First, her ability to plan. She saw operations the way a chess player sees a board, not just the current move, but the next 12 moves. Every contingency mapped, every variable accounted for. Second, her performance under pressure. In 11 years of combat operations, Denise Cole had never panicked, never frozen, never made a decision under fire that she had to second-guess afterward. Her after-action reviews were studied at Fort Liberty as examples of optimal decision-making in high-stress environments. Her call sign was Ironside. She earned it during an operation in Helmand Province in 2017. Her team was ambushed during an extraction. Vehicle disabled. Communications jammed. 3 operators wounded. Denise took command, organized a defensive perimeter, treated the wounded, and led the team 4 miles on foot through hostile territory to a secondary extraction point, all while coordinating air support on a backup radio frequency she had memorized during mission planning. Because she always memorized the backup frequencies, she brought everyone home. The commanding officer who reviewed the operation wrote a single line in his assessment: "There is no one else I would rather have beside me when everything goes wrong." She left the military 2 years ago because of Marcus. Because Marcus needed her. Because their mother had passed and their father had been gone since they were children, and Marcus was alone in Baltimore doing work that mattered in a world that didn't always reward the people who did work that mattered. Denise came home. She got her physical therapy certification. She rented the apartment in Fells Point. She became the quiet sister who worked at the clinic and called Marcus every evening and showed up for Sunday dinners with groceries and a bottle of wine. She buried Ironside. She told herself that chapter was closed. It wasn't closed. It was never closed. You don't spend 11 years operating at the highest level of military special operations and close that chapter with a career change and a new apartment. The training lives in the nervous system. The instincts live in the reflexes. The ability to assess, plan, and execute lives in the architecture of the brain itself. Denise didn't stop being Ironside when she left the Army. She just stopped acting like her, until someone tortured her brother. Denise dropped Marcus at Johns Hopkins. She made sure he was admitted and his injuries were being treated. She kissed his forehead the way she had when he was a kid, the way their mother used to, the gesture that said, "I love you and I've got you and everything is going to be okay." Then she left. She spent the next 48 hours doing reconnaissance on Terrence Odell's operation. She did it the way she had conducted advanced force operations in Kandahar and Mosul, methodically, patiently, building a complete picture from observation, open-source intelligence, and pattern analysis. She identified Odell's home, a renovated row house on Edmondson Avenue. She identified his daily routine: morning coffee at a diner on Frederick Road, afternoon meetings at a barber shop on Monroe Street that served as his unofficial office, evenings at the row house. She identified the 3 enforcers. Pruitt lived in Pigtown. Gaines had a girlfriend in Brooklyn Park. Curtis lived with his mother near Leakin Park. She followed each of them for a day. She noted their habits, their vehicles, their schedules. She mapped the gaps in their awareness, which were significant, because men who spent their lives intimidating youth counselors and small business owners didn't think in terms of counter-surveillance. They thought they were the most dangerous people in any room they entered. They were wrong about that. On the 3rd night, Denise made 3 visits. Pruitt first. His apartment in Pigtown, ground floor. Unlocked window in the bathroom because the latch was broken and Pruitt hadn't bothered to fix it, because who would break into the home of a man who broke other people for a living? Denise went through the window at 2 a.m. She found Pruitt asleep on his couch with the television on. She was standing over him before he opened his eyes. When he did open them and saw a woman looking down at him with an expression that contained nothing, no anger, no threat, just a complete and total absence of anything he could negotiate with, he reached for the gun on the coffee table. Denise picked it up before his hand got there. She ejected the magazine and set it on the table beside the remote control. "You beat my brother," she said. "Marcus Cole, at the warehouse on East Preston. You broke his ribs and dislocated his shoulder. You stood over him and called it a conversation." Pruitt's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "I'm going to give you a choice. In approximately 12 hours, a detailed file on Terrence Odell's operation, including financial records, witness statements, and evidence of extortion across 14 businesses, will be delivered to the FBI's Baltimore field office. Everyone involved will be arrested. You can be part of that arrest, or you can cooperate. Walk into the FBI office yourself. Give a statement. Tell them everything. Names, dates, amounts. If you cooperate, you might get a reduced sentence. If you don't, you'll get the full weight. And I promise you the file I've built is thorough enough to make any defense attorney cry." Pruitt stared at her. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm Marcus Cole's sister. That's all you need to know. But understand this. The only reason I'm offering you a choice is because my brother believes in second chances. He named his program after it. So this is yours. Don't waste it." She left through the front door. Gaines was next. His girlfriend's apartment in Brooklyn Park. Denise entered through the back door, which had a lock she picked in under a minute. Gaines was in the kitchen getting water. He saw Denise and dropped the glass. She delivered the same message, same choice, same terms. Gaines listened with the expression of a man who was rapidly reassessing every decision that had led him to this moment. Curtis was last. His mother's house near Leakin Park. Denise found him on the back porch, smoking, staring at the trees. He saw her coming across the yard and he didn't move. Curtis was the quiet one, the observant one. He looked at Denise the way a dog looks at a bigger dog, with recognition. He saw something in the way she moved, in the way she carried herself, that the other two had missed. "Military," he said. "Yes." "What branch?" "The kind they don't put on posters." Curtis took a drag of his cigarette. "Your brother's a good man. I told Odell to leave him alone. Odell doesn't listen. Then help me make him listen. Walk into the FBI office. Give them Odell. Everything you know." Curtis looked at her for a long time. "And if I don't? Then you go down with him. And your mother spends the next 15 years visiting you behind glass. That's not a threat, Curtis. That's arithmetic." Curtis finished his cigarette. He put it out carefully on the porch railing. "I'll think about it," he said. "Think fast." Denise's final stop was Terrence Odell himself. She didn't break into his house. She didn't need to. She waited for him at the diner on Frederick Road, the one he visited every morning at 7:15 for coffee and eggs. She was sitting in his booth when he arrived. His booth. The one in the back corner that the staff kept reserved for him because that was the arrangement. Odell stopped when he saw her. He looked at this woman sitting in his seat, drinking coffee from his mug, wearing a plain jacket and jeans and an expression that was so completely neutral, it was unsettling. He slid into the opposite side of the booth because refusing to sit down in his own diner would be an admission of uncertainty, and Terrence Odell never admitted uncertainty. "You're in my seat," he said. "Your man Pruitt beat my brother unconscious 3 nights ago," Denise said. "Marcus Cole, the counselor at Second Chance. He broke his ribs because Marcus wouldn't pay an extortion fee to fund your real estate problems. I'm here to tell you that your operation is finished." Odell smiled, the patient smile of a man who had heard threats before. "And who's going to finish it? You? Me? Pruitt? Gaines? Maybe Curtis?" Denise took a sip of coffee. "I've spent the last 48 hours building a file on your organization. Every business you collect from, every dollar amount, every date. I have witness statements from 11 business owners who are willing to testify, because I sat with each of them, and I told them that if they spoke up, the person who hurt my brother would be held accountable. They believed me." Odell's smile faded slightly. "That file will be delivered to the FBI this afternoon, along with financial records I pulled from public sources that show a pattern of cash deposits inconsistent with any legitimate income you've reported, along with Pruitt's medical records from the ER visits that suggest he's been involved in multiple assaults, along with surveillance footage from 3 businesses that have security cameras you didn't know about." Denise leaned forward. "You spent 3 years building this operation. I took it apart in 2 days. Not because I'm smarter than you, Odell. Because I spent 11 years taking apart things much bigger and much more dangerous than you, in places you've never been, for a government that trained me to be very, very thorough. You extort community programs. I dismantled networks that threatened American national security. We are not operating at the same level, and the sooner you understand that, the less painful this will be for you. Odell looked at her. The intelligence in his small eyes was working overtime, processing, calculating, trying to find the angle, the leverage, the gap. He found nothing. This woman had no gap. She was all wall. "What do you want?" he asked. The patience in his voice was gone. "I want you to sit here and finish your coffee and enjoy your last free breakfast, because by this evening, you won't be having breakfast anywhere except a federal facility." Denise stood up. She left a $5 bill on the table for the coffee. "My brother believes in second chances," she said. "I believe in consequences. Today, you get mine." The FBI executed arrest warrants at 6 p.m. that evening. Odell was taken from his row house on Edmondson Avenue. Pruitt was arrested at his apartment. He had already packed a bag, intending to cooperate. Gaines turned himself in at the field office at 4 p.m., 2 hours before the warrants were served. He gave a full statement. Curtis walked in at 5 p.m. He gave a fuller one. The case was built on the evidence file that an anonymous source had delivered to the FBI's organized crime unit via secure channels that the receiving agent later described as consistent with intelligence community tradecraft. The file was meticulous. 14 victim statements, financial analysis, photographic evidence, timelines. It was, in the agent's words, the most professionally assembled civilian evidence package she had ever received. She put the word civilian in quotes in her notes. Odell was charged with racketeering, extortion, conspiracy, and assault. The evidence was overwhelming. His lawyer reviewed the file and advised him to negotiate a plea. Odell refused. He went to trial. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. 18 years federal. Pruitt received 8. Gaines, who cooperated, received 4. Curtis, who cooperated fully and testified, received 3 with the possibility of early release. Marcus Cole left the hospital after 5 days. His ribs healed in 6 weeks. His shoulder took longer. He went back to second chance as soon as the doctors cleared him. He unlocked the warehouse on a Monday morning and turned the lights on and set up the chairs, and when the first kid walked through the door at 3:30 that afternoon, Marcus was standing there the way he always was, tall and steady and present. "Hey man," the kid said. "You okay?" "We heard what happened." Marcus smiled. The cut above his eye was still healing. The bruise on his jaw was fading from purple to yellow. He looked like a man who had been through something and come out the other side. "I'm good," he said. "You finished that math homework?" The kid groaned. Marcus laughed. Life resumed. Denise came to second chance that evening. She brought takeout. She and Marcus sat in the warehouse on folding chairs and ate lo mein out of containers, and didn't say much because they didn't need to. The warehouse was quiet. The basketball court was empty. The fluorescent lights hummed. "Thank you," Marcus said, "for whatever you did." "I didn't do anything," Denise said. Marcus looked at her. He looked at his sister, this woman who worked at a physical therapy clinic and lived alone in a small apartment, and called him every evening, and showed up with groceries on Sundays. This woman with the scar on her hand and the reflexes that didn't match her job title, and the eyes that held more depth than any physical therapist he had ever met. "Okay," he said. He didn't push it. He didn't need to know the details. He just needed to know that his sister loved him enough to do whatever she had done, and he had always known that. Denise went back to the clinic the next morning. She helped a retired firefighter with his knee rehab. She helped a grandmother regain range of motion in her hip. She did the quiet, ordinary, important work of helping people heal. The scar on her hand caught the light when she demonstrated exercises. The depth behind her eyes remained. The reflexes stayed sharp. The training lived in her body the way language lives in the mind. Permanent, structural, always there even when it wasn't being spoken. Ironside was home. Ironside was quiet. Ironside was folding herself into the small, ordinary life of a physical therapist in Fells Point who loved her brother and helped her patients and drank wine on Sundays and carried the weight of 11 years of service in places she would never talk about. But the instincts never sleep, the training never fades. And anyone foolish enough to touch the people she loved would discover, the way Terrence O'Dell discovered, that the quiet woman at the clinic with the strong hands and the careful eyes was not what she appeared to be. She never had been. She never would be. Some people wear capes. Denise wore scrubs and Atlo Man on folding chairs with her brother in an empty warehouse, and she was the most dangerous person in Baltimore, and nobody knew it, and that was exactly how she wanted it. If you believe that true heroes carry scars and not capes, share this story.